Hey everyone, Colin here from Rocky Mountain Fly Shop. Today we're going to be tying the full Flashback Epoxy Pheasant Tail. This is one of many variations of a real classic pattern. It's a super fun one to tie and a fun one to fish too. So today we're going to be tying on a Mustad hook. It's the S8 2 AP in size 12. For our head today we're going to be using a 5/32 copper bead. And for our thread we've got UTC 70 in brown. So we're going to start off with putting a whole bunch of wraps right behind the bead. That'll help secure that and keep the bead in place. And then we'll start laying our thread wraps down the shank of the hook. About halfway, I usually reach in and cut out the tag end. And then we're going to continue to lay our base wrap all the way down the shank until we get just in front of the barb. So the next material we're going to tie in is our ribbing material, and today we're using ultra wire UTC, and this is brassy size in copper. I want to tie that wire in about halfway up the hook shank, and then we're going to bring our thread wraps all the way back to just in front of the barb again. At this point I'm going to take a couple wraps forward and I'm going to grab our flash material that we're going to be using for our wing casing. So today we're using Uni-Mylar Pearl number 10. And when we tie our flash material in, we want to try to put it on a little bit of an angle. This is going to help us work around our tail fibers when it comes time to pull the flash back up over the fly. So a little bit of an angle, anywhere from 15 to 22 degrees. You can also tie your flashback material in on top of your pheasant tail fibers, but I prefer to tie it underneath. I find it's a little bit stronger. We want to tie that in all the way back to where we stop the thread wraps on our wire. So now that we've got both of those guys tied in, the next thing that we're going to do is tie in our pheasant tail fibers. We're using Shor pheasant tail today, and I'm using natural colors. So we're going to take our fibers and we're going to measure out to be about half the length of the hook shank. Once we put our first wrap in place, we're able to reach back over and we can center those up, and you can take a look at your tail and see if you need a little adjustment, and if you do, you can go ahead and pull that forward or back. We're going to give a nice couple cinching wraps, really tie it down good, and then we'll reach forward and just pull our pheasant tail fibers back and wrap our thread all the way forward again. At this point I usually throw in a half hitch, help hold everything in place while I wrap my pheasant tail fibers up. So we'll grab our fibers and start wrapping. We're going to wrap our fibers about 2/3 of the way up the hook shank. Right about here. We'll come back in with our thread. I'm actually going to give that one more wrap. It's a little further. It's okay to be a little further than the 2/3 mark. I find it doesn't it's not too bad for the fly. I don't mind if there's a little bit of bulk on the thorax of the pheasant tail, especially when I'm tying them this big in a size 12. So once we got our pheasant tail fibers all wrapped up and secured, we're going to reach in and cut off our access. And now it's time to tie in our flashback. So we're going to grab our flashback material and pull it forward. Sometimes you've got to work around your tail a little bit. Once I get that material pulled forward, I'm going to grab my wire, and I like to do one nice tight wrap around the back just to hold my flashback material in place. Then we're going to go ahead and start to do some touching wraps forward. And we're going to bring our wire back up right around that 2/3 marker. Once our wire is in position, we can come in with our thread and capture that material and tie it in. We want to make sure at this point that we just tie the wire in. We want to work around our flashback material. Once we've got it tied in, you can either helicopter your wire off, or you can reach in if you've got a set of scissors for wire and just snip it out. And at this point, we're going to grab our flashback material and we're going to pull it back towards the rear of the fly, and we're going to go ahead and start to lay another thread base back to about the 1/3 back down the shank. This is going to be where we're going to tie in our wing casing and our thorax. I don't mind if you do a few extra thread wraps up here, especially in a size 12. I don't mind the front of this fly getting bulked up just a little bit. So once we have that flashback material secured back down, I'm going to grab our Peacock Herl. We're using Peacock Herl from Shor today. For this size and a size 12, I usually use about 3 strands. What we'll do is we'll just reach in, and we're going to place them right behind the bead and start securing them down. And just like the last step, we're going to come about 1/3 back down the shank. Once we've got them tied in, we can throw a half hitch in place just to help hold everything there. We'll grab our Peacock Herl. I like to give it a couple of wraps. It kind of helps the herl stay together. 2 or 3 wraps. And then we will start to wind the material on. So we're going to wrap the herl forward until we get tight to the back of the bead. Once we're there, we'll tie our herl in. And we'll come in and snip out the access. So now we're ready to add our second clump of pheasant tail. For hook size 12, I usually use about 14 to 16 pieces for the front of the fly on the wing casing and the abdomen. And we just want to lay them out. We want to measure about 2 bead lengths a bead length and a half to 2 bead lengths of material ahead of the bead. Once we have that material in place, we're going to reach in and snip the excess out of the back. And now we have to separate our fibers. So I really like to use a bodkin for this. And what we want to do is just kind of even them out. So we want to have about half on each side here, approximately. Once we've got those fibers split, we're going to reach back and grab our wing casing material, our flashback material, and we're going to pull it forward. And as we pull it forward, we're going to grab our pheasant tail fibers and we're going to pull them backwards. Now that we've got everything in position here, we're going to do one wrap of thread over our flash material, and you can reach in and position it so it's close to the center. Then I'm going to do 2 cinching wraps to hold it in place. Then we'll grab the flashback and pull it all the way back to the fly and give it 2 more wraps. And at this point, we're ready to whip finish. We'll come in, give 3-4 wraps. We can cut our thread out. Our next step here is to cut the excess off of our flashback. So what I like to do is grab the material, put it all the way forward, come in as tight as you can to the back of the bead with your scissors, and just cut it out. Now I'm going to use Solarez to finish the back of this fly. So before I do, I like to reach in and just give my pheasant tail fibers a little bit of a pull to make sure that they're out of the way of the wing casing on the back of the nymph. So today we're going to be using Solarez thin hard formula. And what we'll do is we'll come in and we start at the bead and we're going to work our way all the way back to the back of the thorax. The thin and hard formula is great for this because it doesn't flow very much. Just like so. We'll grab our UV light and give it a good cure. I like to give them a good 10 seconds or so. And there you have it. One full flashback epoxy pheasant tail. Thanks for watching.